Hello. Made it. Exactly 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. What's up, YouTube? How are folks doing? It's kind of weird because I'm can see myself on the website, but I'm not on YouTube. I use StreamYard. So yeah, just had to go and check to see if this was real or whatever. So how's everybody doing out there in YouTube land? Really wanted just to start out by saying thanks very much for the subscribers of the YouTube channel, 1,670 of y'all. And so, of course, I'm nothing without y'all, so really appreciate it. You're tuned in to the Friday live broadcast, the Little Guillotine channel. Basically, we're going to be looking at some news articles and doing a little anti-capitalist analysis, talking about it with people. And if folks are wanting to talk about a specific subject or have any questions for me, definitely put that in the comment section in the live comments. I'm not looking at the other comments right now, which I think you can do them at the same time. But anyways, in the live comments, I was always confused. I think I get confused when I'm watching live streams a lot, because I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, bam. Right, okay. So yeah, whenever you are on a live stream, if you wanna comment and things like that. So yeah, whenever you oh, that's a weird loop. So there's gonna be, well, when you're on the desktop, you go over here to the right. You can put in comments, give it a like, which are different than the comments over here. But whenever you're on the YouTube app on your phone, there's going to be, I think it's somewhere right about here, there's going to be this little square in square, I think it is, where you can press that, and then it toggles in between the regular comments and the live comments. That always confused me in the past. But yeah, so I just, while I have this up here, I wanted to bring folks' attention to my previous video, which is called Politicians Love Gun Control by Sweet Tea. And this is an audio zine titled Gun Control, Mass Movements, and Racist Policies. And so basically this is part of the zines or the audiobooks that I'm doing every Thursday evening, posting them on YouTube rather. I don't necessarily do them then. And so I invite folks to check this one out. It's highly relevant in the face of all the white supremacist terrorist mass murdering that we're having to deal with once again in the United States. It was nice / interesting because during COVID, the number of white supremacist mass killings really dropped. And I think I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that, yeah, like an overwhelming majority of mass shootings are done by men who are white here in the United States. And many of them don't get counted, but they're crimes of like white dudes who murder their families, right? So their wives or partners and their children and things like that. And so that's like a mass majority of them. And then the other big category of mass murders that white dudes do in the United States are these racist ones, like in Florida Georgia, that happened last week, and all the other racist ones that happened. So one in Texas at Walmart last year, and things like that. And so so this is relevant because there's a lot of talk once again about gun control. And I don't know if folks are familiar, I have a song that's called Gun Control is Racist, which is a little bit harsh, playing the contrarian there pretty hard, speaking to specific folks, or clickbaity type of excitement type of way of addressing the politics. I think that this pamphlet here, this zine, does a really good job at not doing that, right? But just talking about how gun control helps The capitalist state, and politicians love it, on both sides, conservative and liberal, and talking about how on both sides it's fueled by sort of white supremacist ideology that's underlying and underpinning, consciously or subconsciously, sort of the ideologies of both conservative and liberal folks in the United States, and how important that sort of access to weapons, at least, if not possession of weapons, is to social movements in the United States and across the globe, and thereby trying to change the narrative around gun control. So y'all should check it out. 45 minutes, and it's done by this group that's called North Carolina Peace Corps, and yeah, it's a pretty solid group. They got some really good pamphlets and things regarding violence and self-defense, like the access to self-defense. We know that Black folks are not allowed violent access to self-defense at the same level of other folks in the United States, and so we do not want to call as a way to curb gun violence in the U.S., which I think we all want, right? We want it to stop. We don't see giving the state more power to deny Black folks the right to self-defense and to target folks is going to be an answer that's cogent or viable, right? Quite the contrary, it's not going to curb violence, gun violence, like it already hasn't for so many years, and they talk about that in this pamphlet too. But rather, it's going to result in more disproportionate arrest of folks of color for under the rubric, under the disguise, under the facade of anti-gun violence. And so it's interesting right now because in Colorado, the Republicans are calling for no gun control, right? So the Democrats have called for, here, I think I have a thing up here. Yeah, here it is. Oh, no, AP. So the Associated Press: Block Boulder assault weapons ban renews gun law questions. Oh, you know what? I don't think I'm casting that. I got to change something. Hold on. Yeah, sorry. Share, stop screen. Yes. Share screen, Chrome tab, blocked. Oh, right. Okay, so blocked Boulder assault weapons ban renews gun law questions. Okay, so basically, the Democrats attempted to pass a assault weapon ban in Colorado as a response to the horrible, disgusting mass murder that happened at the grocery store there, King Soopers in Colorado, which is absolutely tragic. And what is it? Hearts and prayers go out to the folks, the victims, family and friends and stuff like that, even though that's poking fun at sort of how ineffective something like that is. But nonetheless, the shit sucks that it happened. I just don't agree with the Democrats and the liberals sort of maneuvering towards a assault weapon ban as a response, as a cogent response to like how we're going to stop this type of behavior in the United States. At the core of it has to do with like white supremacy and identity, racism, anti-Blackness. It is sort of like sociologically where these folks who do these mass murders, these white men, sort of like where the problems and stuff arise from, right? So it's like, if we're going to be radical about it, and radical in the sense that we're going to be going to the root of the problem, preventing people from buying assault weapons isn't going to stop people from wanting to do this in the first place, right? Let's do it with something else. And indeed, you do hear of mass killings with knives in the UK and things like that. Not that those are necessarily comparable on all levels. So also, when you're talking about an assault weapon ban, right? So what is an assault weapon anyways? So they're saying, folks talk about how a semi-automatic firearm, you can kill a lot of people really quick. And then they target long guns, right? And part of the reason is they say that, part of the reason is because just like people be killing folks with these long guns more. There's bigger magazines for a lot of long guns. They can hold 30 round clips, but also 30 round magazines. But there's the same thing for handguns too. So it's just like the long guns, right? They call them assault weapons, but you can assault people with any kind of firearm, right? Even a 22 or a 17. You know what I'm saying? It's just not as effective or whatever. Yes, I guess there's more energy behind rounds that come out of a long barrel and that have like a higher, you know, that have more, you know, the long gun can handle more firepower, and so there's more energy, and so they can be more deadly and stuff. But you know, you can do the same thing with handguns. So in a way, it's like playing into some fear mongering, and by just targeting assault weapons. Because if you want people to not assault people with weapons, then why don't you target all guns? It's like hypocritical. But you know, then again, they're what they're doing is playing into fear mongering around it. Oh, it's these big scary long guns that are responsible for mass shootings, and then also just trying to, you know, get the lowest barrier so that they can win something too, which is cogent. You know what I mean? But it's really interesting that actually the Republicans in Colorado, obviously they're not for gun bans, but they're pushing for increased money for mental health services in Colorado, which in my opinion is the better stance out of those two. So, you know, the Democrats want to ban assault weapons and Republicans don't want to ban assault weapons, but in response they want to increase access to mental health services. And right, I think that's a good that's better, right? But also you have to point out the hypocrisy, like the fact that you can't blame sort of like white supremacy on mental health all the time. They try to do that all the time, right? So like somebody goes on some white supremacist murdering spree, and they talk about how, oh, they just, you know, they had bad mental health. But a lot of times these white supremacist murdering sprees are people on, you know, doing racist genocide, which they're taught by the state and by society here in the United States is okay to do, right? And look at how the cops treat them and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's problematic. So, you know, either way, I think it's not adequate response, but the Republicans pushing for increased access to mental health services, I think, is the right thing to do. I'm definitely not a Republican. Doesn't mean I don't agree with them sometimes, right? So yeah, and back to the audio zine I have. Check that out on my channel. Every Thursday we'll be doing an audio zine, you know, politics. And I don't know, perhaps I'm thinking about it. Maybe leave in the comments if you're interested. But like, starting a Discord and having a discussion about these audio zines, these politics, these theories that I'm discussing and putting out there on YouTube. I don't know if folks would be interested in that. But anyways, you know, don't miss out on any of the audiobooks and other videos. Make sure you smash that subscribe button there, hit the notification bell. And then also another thing that I did, part of my weekly series is excuse me, the direct action or reformism of revolutionary anti-capitalist analysis. Bernstein versus Marx. So anyways, oh, that's not good. That's not very good. Anything about that. But anyways, yeah, check that out too. That was my latest edition of the Chopping Block. And so yeah, Hassan Khan, who's a longtime follower of the channel, right? Big ups to Hassan for the suggestion on doing, you know, direct action video of Chopping Block. I had asked for some suggestions and they gave that. So and it's pretty good, you know. So yeah, check that one out. All right, so now I got some notes somewhere, right? Where'd you go? Notes. Yes, under the feet, naturally. So yeah, just some news things that happened. Yo, did you hear about this frickin' in Georgia, right? The voter suppression bill that's going on there, really messed up. And then like the governor was signing the bill into law, like behind closed doors with just a couple of representatives and things like that. And then there was There was somebody who like was knocking on the door demanding to like be let in and let the people see what you're doing, what you're signing, because it's a really regressive, just like disgusting race, just like overtly racist bill. And like she ended up getting arrested and yeah, like dragged out and is being charged with some felonies, I believe, like some obstructing an officer, yada yada yada. But yeah, that's messed up. They like arrested her from her own like place of work when she was a black woman, and so yeah, that's really messed up. And so let's check this out. CNN Politics. Georgia Republicans speed sweeping elections bill restricting voting access into law. Oh, it's just gonna be a dang.
Well, I think the way
yeah, that's not okay. So maybe we'll wait for that to. So yeah, Republicans in Georgia sped up a sweeping elections bill into law Thursday, making it the first presidential battleground to impose new voting restrictions following Joe Biden's victory in the state. The bill passed both chambers of the legislature in the span of a few hours before Republican Governor Brian Kemp signed it Thursday evening. By changing its election laws, Georgia will take another step toward ensuring our elections are secure, accessible, and fair, he said. Bullcrap. Kemp, who is up for re-election next year, had refused to give in to former President Donald Trump's demands last year that he overturn Biden's victory, earning Trump's public condemnation. But on Thursday, Kemp said alarming issues with the 2020 election demonstrated the need for change. Wow, what a bunch of bullshit, just using that precedent, right? He predicted critics of the new law will threaten, boycott, sue, demonize, and team up with their friends in the national media to call me everything in the book. The new law imposes new voter identification. See, he knows that he's doing something that fucking is wrong. The new law imposes new voter identification requirements for absentee ballots, empowers state officials to take over local election boards, limits the use of ballot drop boxes, and makes it a crime to approach voters in line to give them food and water. Like, what the heck is that? It's like, yeah, because they know that food and water, obviously, all classes of folks need water, all types, but the folks who need food more than others are folks who are in need and have lower income, who are disproportionately people of color, right? And so by doing this, you're going to make it harder for folks who like can't get enough food, who would maybe appreciate to eat in line so that they can go through some of these wild lines that last hours sometimes, depending on how these election boards and things are run in the district. And then the whole taking over local elections boards, like what the heck is that? I mean, I know there's no separation of state and federal government. I mean, that's not the same, but it is the same, right? There should be a separation of city and state, like governments, right? So cities need their autonomies. Otherwise, these uber conservative, because the higher up you go, the more pointless it is, the more money's in the politics, and the more capitalists have power, right? So by taking the power away from the local election boards and giving them to the states, you're giving the capitalists more power to do their racist crap. And then look at this new event, voter identification requirements for absentee ballots, right? I wonder what that is exactly. It's on some, so just making it harder to do absentee ballots, right? Because getting to the, and I don't know if folks know about this, but there's a lot of countries that have voting on national voting days, right? First of all, so that everywhere does it the same day and on the weekends, so that people who work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, which I think, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure anymore, but yeah, that's like a lot of people, right? But they don't do that here. They have it on Tuesday all the time, which is like one of the most inaccessible days of the week to have voting in a so-called democracy, just for working class folks. So that's BS. It's like the Christmas tree of goodies for voter suppression, Democratic State Senator Jen Jordan said on the Senate floor as lawmakers prepare to vote on the nearly 100-page bill on Thursday. You know what I'm going to do, actually? Bam. Cool. Wait, how about this? Yeah, nice. I got to find that page again. Boom. By Thursday, Republicans cast the measure dubbed the Election Integrity Act of 2021 as necessary to boost confidence in elections after the 2020 election saw Trump make repeated unsubstantiated claims of fraud. What? Well, okay, so boost confidence in the elections, even though there's like record number turnout, voter turnout, that is just like so asinine. Okay, so yeah, they're, I think CNN's got their skew here when they say they're obviously not for this because Trump made repeated unsubstantiated claims of fraud. The Republicans are saying that they were substantiated, using that as an excuse for why they need to boost confidence because folks believed Trump when he said that their claims of fraud, but nobody believed him. I mean, except for his ardent supporters and whatnot. But yeah, just how they, like this is trickle down stuff from these uber conservative right wing president that happened, and now they're using it as an opportunity for this. We don't know. I don't know necessarily that this opportunity would have been there had the president not been on some BS like that. Okay, so by Thursday evening, a lawsuit challenging the new law had already been filed by a trio of voting rights groups, the New Georgia Project and the Black Voters Matter Fund and Rise Inc. That's good. It's part of a Republican effort that aims to restrict access to the ballot box following record turnout in the election. Right. So, the Republicans, part of their strategy ever since, they flipped in like the 50s, 60s, where, because the Democrats are the party of slavery, right? Like they're the ones who were supporting slavery back in the 19th century. And so, yeah, since the Republicans have been the conservative, quote unquote, party in the United States, this has always been part of their strategy is voter suppression because they just they know that their supporters are in the mind, there's less of them, right? There's less Republican supporters, and that the only way that they can continue to have power is by making sure that the most privileged and the minority white, most privileged folks and, majority white folks are able to have special privileges in the voting arena. And so, they've never stopped with voter suppression. This has always been in their strategy. And yeah, so just the fact that the record turnout happened would make them sort of double down, like, because they know that if they don't pass some voter suppression laws ASAP in the United States, that they're like over, right? So they're going to be going hardcore for this. And we're successful in Georgia, apparently, unfortunately. So yeah, that's really messed up. So yeah, we got so what did folks hear about that? Shit's really messed up. So I guess we can continue more. We can expect for this to continue from the Republican Party and different states across the U.S. We'll see. Hopefully they're going to be able to put them in. I guess mass, direct action resistance is definitely needed against that stuff because it's interesting because voting rights in the United States for Black folks was part of the civil rights, was a major underpinning sort of goal and for the civil rights movement of the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. But yet voting in this system is not that valuable, right? But it's very important to have the option, right? So it's like you want to win the right to vote. It's very important, for your democratic rights, but you don't necessarily want to vote, I would say, you know what I mean? Because, and the more local the election, the more important it is to vote for any individual. But like if folks didn't vote for presidents, in my opinion, it wouldn't make much difference in the long run, right? Because the Democrats, if they win, they do a lot of horrible things. They do a lot of horrible things, and they do it better than the Republicans can because they have this facade of progressivism that they're able to wield against folks. So yeah, that brings up Biden's like how hard he's failing with imperialism, right? So that's one thing traditionally that I'm gonna stop that. That's one thing that traditionally the Democrats are really good at is starting wars, right? Starting wars. Let me just check what that looks like. Okay, yeah, my face is there. Starting wars, doing imperialism. They seem to be better at this. And like in the 20th century, last century, the Democrats like started almost all the wars that there were, and they continue to be the most warmongering party, in my opinion, than the Republicans are. Not that the Republicans are good; it's just that it's important to point out, like, these dynamics and the power that they have. So here we have Biden can't picture U.S. troops in Afghanistan next year, right? Um, Yep. So there was a May 1st deadline to pull out all of the troops from Afghanistan. But he's saying, he paints it like this: oh, I can't picture U.S. troops in there next year. But yeah, bro, you were supposed to get them out in a few weeks, but that's not going to happen. Allegedly because of tactical reasons, right? It's always some tactical BS. So this one's kind of short. U.S. President Joe Biden has said he can't picture U.S. troops still being in Afghanistan next year, but did not offer a precise timetable as to when the withdrawal would take place. All eyes are on Washington as Biden decides whether his country will leave the war torn country by May 1st, in line with the deal struck with the Taliban group, or stay put. Under the February 2020 deal negotiated by Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump's administration, the U.S. promised to withdraw all 2,500 U.S. troops left in Afghanistan. And that's just like people that are left. That's a lot of dang troops. You know what I'm saying? Like, geez. In return, the Taliban pledged to renounce violence, prevent groups such as Al Qaeda from using Afghanistan as a base from which to attack U.S. and allied targets, and enter into intra Afghan peace talks. Yet violence continues to plague the South Asian country, including a recent rise in deliberate killings of journalists, aid workers, and government employees. It's going to be hard to meet the May 1st deadline, Biden said at his formal White House news conference of his presidency on Thursday. He had his first ever news conference. Okay, well, in justifying the delay, he pointed to tactical difficulties. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. So, it's more of the business as usual, but business is more efficient for imperialism under a Democrat. So, yeah, it's very important to point that out. Speaking of Democrats suck, well, here I'm gonna go easy on Biden because have y'all heard about this? Right. So let me figure out how to do this. Stop the screen, share the screen. Boom. Here we go. So yeah, apparently on right away, Biden had a ban on I think it's called on oil and gas leases on public land. That kind of sound like part of the capitalist trajectory of Western colonialism and indigenous genocide is that Mr. Teddy Roosevelt, who was like this big conservationist who like allegedly preserved so much land because he was an environmentalist, etc., is actually like a big hardcore capitalist because that's part of the strategy of the capitalist and national policy, for them to be able to say, okay, so like what they do is they create national parks, right? First they go in, they kill indigenous people, they take land, and then and there's lots of criticisms about that, so they make national parks. Teddy Roosevelt's administration, and they put the stamp on crap loads of land, which is good. Don't get me wrong. And I want to go to some national parks. I don't know that I've ever been to a single one. Now that I think about it, what national parks have y'all been to? Definitely want to go to Yellowstone. But anyways, whatchamacall. And so yeah, what he does is he's put the stamps of national park on it, and then they wait like 50, 100 years, and then they go and they open it up to like people to drill and to develop, and they slowly let like different capitalist corporations and industries have access to different parts of national park land, including, so this is what this is like. Biden put a moratorium on oil and gas leases on public land, which if think about it, I'm not sure, I'm just kind of having this thought, but when I think about it, right, my sort of perception is that most land in the United States is not owned by the federal government, but rather by private interests or governments that are smaller, on a smaller scale, like states and city and county, right? So, I think like probably a large percentage of any public land that's federally owned is national parks. So that's what this is in response to. So yeah, it's a clever strategy. You know, you kill indigenous people, take their land, pretend like you're this environmentalist, and you're preserving all the land, but then slowly you know lease it away for folks to develop and to pillage, right, with their either fossil fuel industry, which is of course horrible and causing the degradation and destruction of the planet. But so kudos for Biden for putting um, this moratorium on along, you know, right. I think right when he took office, he did this, and of course, not non kudos to the whole system that kind of sets up the land to being controlled by the capitalists in the first place via genocide. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, Utah joins lawsuit to stop Biden's ban on oil and gas leases. Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes joined a lawsuit to block President Joe Biden's plan to suspend oil and gas leases on federal land, according to a statement released by his office on Thursday. Utah is joining several other states, including Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia, in suing Biden's administration. The lawsuit claims Biden's executive order is in direct violation of the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act and Mineral Leasing Act. Reyes and Biden's unlawful moratorium on federal land causes a great threat to Utah's oil and gas industry. Yeah, that's the point. Adding the revenues from oil and gas leases help fund schools and local governments, as well as health, safety, and environmental projects across the state. Well, I mean, okay, so I'm sorry, but all capitalists, I mean, there's very few capitalists who aren't donating stuff, and part of, you know, mostly because they're guilt they're freaking guilty of, you know, being greedy because they want to write stuff off, right? So it becomes like this tax, and that's how they have it set up, right? They have the whole system set up so that it becomes profitable for the capitalists to fund schools and local governments, as well as health, safety, environmental projects across the state. This thing that they fund schools and local governments is, I guess they're just talking about the taxes that the oil and gas leases, you know what I mean? So then any capitalist taxes, unless, because, you know, the reason I say that is because you're talking about fund schools and local governments, like you can't just, as a capitalist, like give money to help run schools and local governments. You do that via your taxes, and then the government does that, right? So it's like, okay, so what's so special about these capitalists' taxes that help fund schools and governments compared to any other industry? Like we could replace these with other capitalists that don't destroy the earth, right, and make it impossible for our children and grandchildren to even be alive, right? So there's plenty of other ways to help fund schools and local governments. And just because you destroy or get rid of this one industry doesn't mean there's not going to be other capitalists. And then there's the whole that come in and are able to help fund schools and governments. And then there's the whole, you know, charity thing where, like, I was pointing to or touching on a little bit ago. It's like the they make it profitable for folks to give to different things, but that doesn't. They also have the system set up so that it doesn't necessarily get to the root of the problem, right? It's not the radical solution to the problem. It just helps sprinkle some stuff on top while capitalists get to do, you know, take tax write-offs and make even more money. And so, yeah, so like, you know, just get rid of these oil and gas industry in the United States. Folks can, we can run the whole entire electricity grid off of renewable energy. Right now, the technology is possible. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before. And if you haven't, you should definitely know this. But we have the technology to run the entire U.S. electrical grid system off of renewable energies, wind and solar. We just need to be able to have the courage to not rely on capitalism and the free markets to instill it, and we need to just do that shit. So yeah, smash the oil and gas companies because they're superfluous and antiquated, if you will. And so yeah, let's get this renewable energies. Kudos to Biden for passing that bill. He ran on the renewable energy stuff and allegedly has a Biden plan for, you know, energy plan and whatnot. So we'll see. But yeah, these 14 attorney generals apparently are suing Biden over this moratorium because they want the oil monies and the destruction of the earth to speed up whatever. They don't give a shit about the earth, right? They just care about their profits. I'm sure they're in denial and they just say climate change doesn't exist or whatever, all that BS. And so yeah, it's pretty messed up. Hopefully Biden does something and follows through on his promises to do something about the environment and actually have a renewable energy plan beyond this. And yes, we shall see. He definitely is following through on his opening up schools too quick sort of thing that he ran on. And so, I'm trying to think, what would you do? Stop screen or share another one? Okay, I gotta stop the screen. Yeah, I'm saying it out loud. Oh, fogey. Bam. Alright, so kudos to these folks. Right, 7 arrested in Line 3 pipeline protest in St. Louis County. The protests were the latest in a series of demonstrations against the pipeline. Big ups, y'all. Not for getting arrested necessarily, but just for, because ideally you don't get arrested at all. But just for doing the resistance and putting their bodies on the line and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, super glad that these things exist, that these folks exist and these movements exist. And it's really important for the left to be reporting on these inspiring actions. And yeah, when folks are winning stuff in the movement, right, we need to hear more of that because it's all just doom and gloom in the mainstream media mostly. And everybody ignores left movements, right, direct action and its results in the mainstream media because it's not in their interest to like spread the fact that stuff's happening. And so yeah, let's see how long this is. Yeah, it's short. 7 people were arrested protesting against the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline replacement project Thursday, part of a continued effort that has resulted in more than 100 people being arrested over the past months. Yeah, they were able to shut it down for a few hours, like I think 9 hours or something like that. I don't know if you know, put it in the comment if you know how long they were able to shut it down for. But the St. Louis County Sheriff's Department responded to protesters at a construction site in Floodwood Township on Thursday. According to a release from the Northern Lights Task Force, a group of sheriff's departments made up to respond to Line 3 protests. Eesh. So like a special goon squad. That's gross. Deputies arrived to find 20 to 30 people protesting. Of those protesters, 4 individuals reportedly crossed the construction site and locked themselves to heavy machinery. These 6 protesters, along with one other who did not leave when ordered, were arrested for gross misdemeanor trespass and obstructing legal process. That's such. So, Jane Fonda was an environmental activist who was involved in that too. It's not really close to here, but it's in the next state. So I really would like to try to get up there sometime. Just having to watch the kids, 6 and 8-year-old every day has made it kind of hard and stuff like that, but I'm trying to make that happen still. So go up there and join folks. Okay, so on the subject of like inspiring stories. We'll go ahead and just on that subject right there. Try to find it. And they have some footage from it. It's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? Inspiring. That was the representative. Oh yeah, Democracy Now! Folks don't know, right? And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know, now you know. And on death row, oh. Okay, so I'm not finding it. Might have been from a different day. I'm gonna have to do better lining stuff up. Alright, did y'all hear about check this. Check it. British pipeline arrests. Yes. Close the border. Oh yeah, yo, like the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, of course, appointed by Biden, and um, influenced by Biden, like closed the border, right? They closed the border, which is like, wow. Like I don't think like Trump even did that. They're talking about we closed the border, nobody's getting in right now, and then they're like housing. They got like hundreds of children, right? They got hundreds of children, um, record numbers of children that they're detaining. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as well as Department of Health and Services, that they end up getting separated from their parents by messing around in the U.S. system after they try to get, which is what they try to get what should be considered asylum, right? Because of how much American foreign policy has wrecked the economies and made it hard for folks to be able to eat down south of the border, right? So yeah, you get wrecked by American economic imperialism or economic terrorism, if you will, and then you seek asylum and you get torn away from your family. It's messed up. Biden is a real jacked up person for that. So yeah, he did the environment stuff, but how about these people? How about humans? How about some human dignity? I don't understand that. Oh yeah, speaking of that, his immigration policy, right? So xenophobe ass Democrats. Haitian deported. So Haitian Biden deported more Haitians in the first 30 days than Trump did in the last year of his presidency, and apparently hundreds of children just in the last 30 days were deported to Haiti. And even though Biden allegedly said that they could face violence if they go back there, it's like, yeah, how does that add up? So so that's supposed to be one of the reasons why you can be granted asylum in the United States, is if you're going to be subject to violence if you return to the country that you're attempting to get you're granted asylum from. And so there you go, more of the Democrats, right? The Democrats' ability to freely perform imperialism and oppression and xenophobic immigration policies. How they're so good at it. You know what I'm saying? It's really jacked up. But so apparently Biden has increased his. Let me see what else I got here. I got. Yeah, we'll go on this. This is subject. Yeah, we're just ripping into Biden, right? We'll call this the some Biden sucks. We'll call this Biden Sucks podcast every Friday live. I'm gonna accept that. Those cookies things. Europe was like requiring those. So when I visited Europe the last time, or the only time I've been there, yeah, they had those on every website, and it was like part of the policy. They had to have those, and so I used to think those are like phishing or something like that, but I click them all the time now to get them out of there because I understand that that's part of European policy, and I think that they're going to be having that in the United States too, just so folks they're transparent about how they're putting cookies on your browser and you're being like tracked and stuff like that by these websites. It's good to know those things and to like bring the power of espionage and surveillance, take it away from the capitalist corporations. Of course, the state always has large access to those things. So here, yeah, Biden sucks. Democrats are good at imperialism and xenophobia. Thousands of foreigners unlawfully held in northeast Syria. Countries should bring citizens home, ensure due process for ISIS suspects. Okay, so this isn't directly like Biden's policies, but yet again it is, right? And the policies of the U.S. I guess this stretches back to Obama, obviously, when the Syrian war, civil war first popped off. But yeah, there's like tens of thousands, 27,500 children, most in locked camps. And these are folks who are like accused of being ISIS, right? So like Syria's claiming that these folks are ISIS. And I think this is a good thing to bring up, to just point out like abolitionists' perspectives and theories, and just about how like as an abolitionist, if we seek to achieve abolition and the ending of prisons in general, then we have to understand that the way that we curb crime and we seek justice for those who have been subject to crime and violence is not via locking the folks who have done that crime up in prisons, because of how ineffectual that is as a method for curbing crime, and because how that gives the state the power to the capitalist state the power to enforce its policies in the most gruesome manner, right? So much torture happens in these prisons, and probably more in the United States than in Syria. I'm speculating there, but it's definitely true that we do this torture. Like, folks don't lock people up at rates that we do in the United States, and they don't torture them by forcing folks to go into solitary confinement like they do in the United States. So if we're going to be an abolitionist, we have to understand that. So even if, these are suspects too, which is messed up, right? So these aren't folks who have been, obviously that's jacked up. And Bashar al-Assad is like, this is very like totalitarian BS, right? There's nothing democratic about locking up someone who's a suspect. We have rights in the U.S., I guess, at least, that you can't get locked up unless arrested. And like, well, yeah, you can, I guess. Anyways, they're suspects. They're not guilty, right? Yet they're being held indefinitely. Actually, now that I say that, that happens all the time in the U.S., right? You get arrested for something, and you're not necessarily guilty yet. Then you can't afford bail. So yeah, we definitely do that, but it's definitely jacked up. You know what I mean? So yeah, even ISIS folks who were, if they were like cutting people's heads off, whatever, putting them in jail is not going to be the way that you're going to seek justice for the families of folks, or whatchamacall, not just reform folks, I guess what you call it, like reduce recidivism. Anyways, rehabilitate, I think, is the word. I'm not sure if that's the best word to use there, but so yeah, I think these ISIS folks should be freed, especially 27,500 children. What's the freaking? I mean, that just makes no sense. That's some obvious malfeasance, like totalitarian dictator crap going down there. Come on, it's really messed up. Really messed up. Oh, yo, this is exciting. Oh yeah, some more good news. So a couple good stories here this week. It's always encouraging. This one is fucking awesome, yo, for folks who have been in the fight against police brutality now.
Prevailed in Battery Park City today. It's multicolored glass.
Never mind. That's just their like live cast. So anyways, New York City ends qualified immunity for police officers, becoming first in the nation to do so. Hey, if I had like a horn button or some kind of mass applause button right now, I'd be pressing it right now for sure. Yes, this is so dope, right? So dope. So qualified immunity was like this law that happened. See, that's the thing. I didn't realize that the city governments had the power, but also to like end qualified immunity for police officers. So let me start. This qualified immunity is like a law or a legal precedence that allows police to commit violence and like kill people, and then as long as they say that they were like that they were afraid for their life, then they're going to be able to go ahead and kill someone and not get in any trouble, but rather they'll get a paid vacation. That's the MO. That's the modus operandus of police murderers. So that's why police are scum, and I hate them all. And if there's any watching, you can fuck off right now and go find another channel. So the New York City Council voted Thursday to end qualified immunity for police officers. Boom, 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 boom. The decades-old protection has prevented officers from being sued or liable for misconduct. The New York has now the first city in the country to end qualified. The measure was passed as part of a package of police reform bills. And shout out to all of the activists and the organizers and the folks on the street who threw down and faced brutality from the New York City Police Department by doing those grassroots social movements and really being there. That's it's all they're doing, right? We shouldn't give any credit to the New York City Council, except for being put, because they were pressured by social movements to do this stuff. And yes, just like, so kudos to New York anti-violence, Black Lives Matter activists and organizers. Y'all rock. Y'all did it. New York is now the first city in the country. Critics argued scrapping the protection will make officers less aggressive in fighting crime. Yes, if they have to worry about lawsuits. See, they don't fight crime though. That's the only thing. They make crime. They're scum. They're racist. They're racist class war enforcers. City Council Speaker Corey Johnson, however, said it has been used to deny justice to victims of police abuse for decades. That's right. Rooted in our nation's history of systemic racism, qualified immunity denied freedom riders justice and has been used to deny justice to victims of police abuse for decades, he tweeted after the vote. It should never have been allowed, but I'm proud that we took action today to end it here in NYC. Oops. The NYC Council just voted to end qualified immunity for police officers, making qualified immunity was established in 1967 in Mississippi to prevent freedom riders from holding public officials liable even when they broke the law. Okay, yeah, jacked up. Okay, so all of the congratulatory energies have to be funneled to the protesters and the activists and Black women leaders and Black Lives Matter folks for sure for doing this, and this is huge. So yeah, on the question of, so like I thought, yes, it says it was established in 1967 Mississippi. Does that mean that it was just like city by city policies that spread around the country? I was under the impression that it was a legal precedent that was sort of nationwide, settled in a state case, and that so I didn't know that city council, so that's just my ignorance or whatever. So it's good to learn about that. And so, but it makes sense too, though, because most of the power and the power dynamics of the police lies in city governments, right? And that's why this is such an important thing, because New York City is like the biggest city in the country, and so if they can do it, so can smaller cities. You know what I'm saying? Because the police have the most power in the biggest cities. So most of the power of the police and the police unions lies in the union contracts that they have with the city governments that they work for, with, or alongside, if you will. It's hard to really define that characteristic relationship because of just the nature of the role of the police. Excuse me. Smoking a lot recently of CBD flowers. And so, yeah, it makes sense that that this power also is in the city government theater alongside the union contract. Because if you think about it, the police and their ability to bargain with cities is a really horrible, violent, brutal thing that enables the police to be able to do whatever they want in enforcing laws, when really they're a goon squad of racist class war enforcers, preventing people from getting enough to eat and making sure Black people and other folks of color stay in their place is the real role of the police. But the collective bargaining power through police unions and union contracts is really quite a brutal thing, because it gives power to the beat police, the beat cop, just like other unions and collective bargaining contracts give power, ideally, right, depending on how they're written, give power to the workers on the line or whatever, depending on what industry you're talking about. The fact that these police union contracts, these collective bargaining contracts, give power to the beat cop, and the beat cops role, their job is to use brutality and violence to enforce the racist class status quo of the ruling classes, means that these collective bargaining contracts are going to enable the beat cop to be able to perform more violence. And so these things should be the police shouldn't be allowed to have unions. They shouldn't exist at all, right? So good to hear about this qualified immunity being struck, ended in New York City, and we need to pass that immediately everywhere. So I don't know. It would be a good idea to like organize around this, in my opinion. Like let's get some kind of coalition, some national networks of folks together and push this. Let's get this pushed. Not iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, real quick, y'all. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna stop that screen share. Okay, so there you go. Again, the weekly schedule, right? So we're doing every Wednesday. We're going to do a chopping block, which is an edited piece of political theory or analysis or presentation that I'm going to be doing and publishing every Wednesday. Every Thursday, tune in to the Little Guillotine channel and check out the audiozine audiobook. Let me know in the comments if folks are interested in doing a study group on the audiobook audiozine that we do every week. And, maybe just that might be fun, might be good way. Reading theory is one thing, but then talking about that theory that you just read is yet another thing that's better. Helps hammer it into the brain so that folks are able to utilize that as praxis in the movements against capitalism and capitalist oppression and repression and racism. So I'm definitely interested. Let me know if you are, and we'll get that started somehow, some way. And on Fridays, we're going to be doing live broadcast at 5 p.m. Central every Friday. So tune in for that. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and smash the likes on the that really does help the channel. It helps the channel a lot. That's going to help out. Hit the subscribe so you don't miss any of these edition. Hit that bell so it shows up in your notifications, because apparently if you hit the subscribe and not the bell, you won't get notified about it. So that's important. Let me know if there's any other subjects you want to see a chopping block made for. So if there's some kind of political analysis that you're interested in or have questions about, put that in the comments section. So yeah, other than that, I'm gonna get up on out of here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all on Wednesday with the chopping block, right? All right, peace out, y'all.